Good evening and welcome to My Future. I'm Ruveniko and very excited for tonight's episode simply because I'm biased as a radio personality myself. Tonight we continue in our edition around media in Zimbabwe, and we have the honor of having a full house this evening, which are different radio personalities from the different radio stations in Zimbabwe. Let me start by introducing to my left, we have Tapiwa Msoni. He's joining us from Star FM, known as the Day Walker. Tapiwa comes from Murewa, which is why I'm mentioning it only because I identify, and he is there at Star FM as a producer and a presenter. He worked for ZBC initially, Radio 1, as a producer and a presenter as well, and he also makes documentaries and corporate videos.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that. I always wanted to say that.
And then we also have Bongai Zamchia. Bongai Zamchia is a businessman, part-time radio presenter, identified with Star FM lately, but started at ZBC. He's also a voiceover artist for different aspects of life, television adverts, corporates, documentaries, and also he's been in the industry for 16 years. And 16 years internationally, 10 years locally, correct? And Zam is also very much involved in Zim rugby. I think maybe many would know his name and face from those areas as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We're also joined by the only woman on the panel. She's been in the industry for 30 years. It's Tilda Moyo Karizamimba.
I want to know Farah
Makadizwe.
Aiwa still right.
Makore akawanda kai.
Aiwa inyasha.
Anditi makatangira ku ZBC.
Takatangira ku ZBC.
And you ended up at Star FM.
Aiwa ta kuni nyanzo.
That's good. So, Tilda has been, as I said, with ZBC, also in television. You might remember her from back in the day, Mutini Mirawe Mumanzi on Ezemgiro, the Eric Knight. Oh, yes. And also, she's also worked with John Perry and Gift Masipa. So, we're very happy to have you with us tonight. As you know, she's going to be answering in her mother tongue because that's Tilda. That is one of her trademarks and one of the things many of us admire. And we also have Dennis Dube, known as Dennis That Guy. Danny is a presenter on ZFM Stereo, presenter and a producer, and he's also the co-founder of Two Broke Twimbos, which is an online, an online blog.
And podcast. The biggest podcast in the country, actually.
Award-winning podcast. I mean, I must mention that. Thank you very much for joining us, Dan.
You are welcome.
And then we also have, last but not least, Mr. Spencer Banda. Spencer is also ZBC originated, and he's been 15 years in broadcasting. He is now with Star FM, and we probably know him for sport, of course. He's traveled the world, right, in the last couple of years, and you've covered Olympics 2004, 2016, so obviously very experienced. So thank you for joining us too.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, so now we are going to start with, I guess, the evolution of radio in Zimbabwe, where we have listened to radio. And one of the things I want to ask, I guess off the cuff to any one of you, is what is your most memorable radio advert from the 80s and 90s?
Jazzin.
Which one?
Jazzin, man. Jazzin. Z-A-R-Z-I-N. That advert is older than most of us here, except maybe Tilda. Oh, yeah. Except maybe Tilda. Because ever since I was really young, I mean, in junior school, I'll never forget that advert.
Right.
Yeah.
So, anyone else?
Hold on to your medicine. All right, that one is just a legendary one, done by his brother, by the way, which I absolutely loved. Mm-hmm. Another one done by someone who's famous now, Lucien Samati, Mazoe Orange Crush. Real orange, real values. Right. It just really epitomized the whole of Zim. And as a voiceover artist, I looked up to those guys, and they were phenomenal, still great.
Now, I remember 1986, the advert for the World Cup, and it goes, World Cup, football's greatest event, and I should be in Mexico in June. I think I remember that.
Did you do the voiceover?
No, look, I was 6 years old. I was 6 years old, but I remember that up to this day.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Ndichiri kuyeuka advert yenyama I don't know if you could remember that one. Samson nyama inona kainotaura yega.
I don't even think so.
With
know if I was an idea at all.
With Simon Shumba, Mutiro Afansa. Oh, I must be seeing things everywhere. You can't forget that.
The ones that always stuck in my mind are the ones where it was almost crazy. It just didn't make sense. Why is that there? For example, power sales. Where your money buys you
where your money buys you
more. Why is that there? Why is that there? Why is it like that? And it always stuck in my head.
Right. No, I asked this because radio is such a personal thing, and the way we all just lit up thinking of those memories. And the question I'll follow up with that is, where were you when you were listening to radio back then? Because obviously radio has evolved so much, and that's what we're going to get into. Now we've got from the wireless telegraph, right, in the 19th century, up until internet radio today. So when you were listening to radio before, where were you physically? What kind of device did you use? And what was the culture of radio in the family? Where were you then versus where you are now?
Well, first of all, radios were too big to put in cars, those particular type ones. Angari stereo, and they had all kinds of like leather fittings and things like that. It was like part of the furniture. So for me personally, it was like Saturday morning, I would sit near the radio and eat my porridge there and so forth, and listen to guys like James Makamba, Dikati Dre Kwamato. So it was, you'd be sitting, at home right there, and the radio, and it was a great source of entertainment.
I remember my first time on air. That was in 1986. Wow. Makore iwayo maradios zvaishamisa zvokuti like vanhu vakawanda vamwe vanenge vasina maradios. My neighbors, like, they would come kuzoona TV, kuzoona radio. I remember maiti muchiyamba mevanhu muchizoda kuti muone radio, maitonzi tangai mageza makumbo kuti mupinde mugara, mopinda mogara mokapfunya chisero, like you'd sit makatarisa paradio, so apa muri kunzwa zviri kuti but zvasingaiti uterere radio uri kureba, waiwe wotogara ngori kuona TV, saka vanhu vachitaura, so iwe unenge une picture yako yemunhu iyeye. Zvokutoti I remember vanhu vakawanda kwakusati kwane zvemaOB zviriko mazuva anaya, like taingo broadcaster tiri kuma stations, saka vanhu vaizokuona kuti ndo zvauri nai, saka iye munhu paanenge akagara akatarisa radio anenge ane imwe picture yemunhu, so
That's those years, radio was just a voice. You were just a voice.
It was just a voice. That was in the early or mid 1980s. Actually, vanhu kare vaitoziva time nenyema programs epa radio.
Right.
They would know kuti okay 12 o'clock vakanzwa kwazi, so they know kuti it's 12 o'clock now.
Right.
Vakanzwa Jazz and Men, they know it's 6:45.
Is it meant to hold people the way that it captured you?
I think zviri kudaro, ende tichizviitawo nenzira iri nani, tichiendawo nekuti tiri kufambirana nenguva nezviri kuitika. Okay, like we are saying, kudhara would wait for kunzwa recording yowane paradio, but nenyaya yetechnology iriko mazuva anaya, you can get that music anytime and anywhere. But kudhara, people like they would wait for radio programs kuti vanzwe marecords manyowani.
That was the purpose. Dan?
Speaking as someone who probably knows radio from a more recent perspective, for me radio was mostly in the car. There's too much going on elsewhere to listen to the radio when you're not
in motion
doing something else.
Right.
So you're in the car. That was when we were going to school. On the way to school, we knew that the radio's on, so it would be the same voice we hear every morning. It's the same person between the same time. I was probably late most times, so it would be about 7 to 7:30. It's the same person you're listening to every day. And you sort of begin to feel like you know that person because they have the same mannerisms. They make the same jokes almost. And you can almost tell that I know exactly what he's going to say because of this song. Or I know exactly what he's going to say about the heat that's out. And over the years, you feel like you get to know this person. And it becomes very weird when you actually meet that person.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more of My Future right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to My Future as we continue our conversation tonight on radio broadcasting in Zimbabwe.
You know, Titi Mawarire, back in the day, they were swapping. You know, we've got Ruveniko, she's in Borrowdale, she's got 3 Kenny Rogers CDs and wants to swap them with someone for similar value. It was about almost like transactional things and business going on. Now, radio is very much entertainment. So that little slot, like Danny's saying, you're doing something else. Whereas Tilda was saying before, you're like, there's that show on, I need to sit down. Kwasiso played an important part because you had to get a message out to people who lived far away and let them know kuti, or update kuti kwafiwa. You know, you didn't have, there was a quick way of doing it. There's no cell phones, etc. So now we've gone from having it as a social tool to an entertainment tool, which makes it a hell of a lot more demanding because people want to be entertained. You've got to raise the bar for entertainment. Yeah, they don't need you. People don't need radio. Back in the day, they needed radio.
Right.
Now they don't.
It's almost background noise sometimes now. It's like if you're in the car, it happens to be on, and you're not really listening. It's not your primary focus. So are we in a sticky position? Because, I mean, one debate that's been going on for the past maybe 5-10 years is around the decline or the imminent death of print media. Yeah. Is radio headed in the same direction?
It's finding survival mechanisms. You know, the fact that you had a radio device, now you've got radio online, and so forth. It's a survival strategy, survival device. So I think, well, we've still got a radio for a lot longer. I think the next evolution, there's going to be some other kind of technology, but it's still going to be radio. You know, but the one thing that I feel as a radio presenter is that the pressure is really on her to up our game and actually be able to hold an audience. It's not as easy.
It's not easy at all anymore.
Just wanting to support what Dave Walker is saying. Look, back in 1986, you'd listen to the radio and want to listen to Ives Bambara, Farai Mgazi doing commentary on radio because when you have the latest results and things like that. These days, you still have people whilst they're watching the game at the National Sports Stadium. They've got their earphones on and they're listening to you guys doing commentary. So you have to make sure that you got your facts right. Probably in the olden days, if they had got facts right or mixed up, or if they say so and so has scored and it's not actually that person has scored, it was probably less of a crime. Now these days people are watching on TV, they are watching that game, you can't get anything.
Twitter timeline,
and on Twitter, and so you have to, and also you have to make sure you're innovative enough to tell them what they don't know. I think that's the pressure that we've got nowadays.
Tell me something I don't know. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So you see, it's a whole lot more that needs to be done now for a person who's going to be going on radio.
Right.
Briefly, just think about it this way. Movies. Right. Do you rent movies? You can rent movies online. But think about it. There's Netflix. There's paid for subscriptions, right? There's still things, people go Pirate Bay, etc. You're going to download. Back in the day, we had video clubs. People would go to video clubs, right? Then we moved on and we had Yap, and we're now getting our DVDs, etc. People said that the internet would kill it. But people have Netflix subscriptions, Apple TV subscriptions. People have all sorts of subscriptions together, even DSTV. You can download movies. It's exactly. All it is about the delivery methodology, and radio's got to adjust, right? So if you're saying that you've got a product which people want, all you need to do is change the way in which you deliver it to people, and people will pay for it.
I also think it's a bit too simplistic to compare radio to print media. Print media is dying because of the evolution of how people consume media. But the media itself that people are consuming is the same. It's still the same news stories, it's still the same journalists that are providing that news story, it's still the same photographers that are taking those pictures. It's just that how people are consuming it. So with the radio, it's also still the same kind of content. It's still radio presenters and DJs who are playing music, who are talking interesting stories. The difference is we're no longer using antiquated technology to distribute that kind of content. Now you can get it on the internet. Now you can get it in podcast form, for example. Right. So radio and print media are a bit different because print media is more of a reference to the actual output of how that media is going to be consumed, whereas radio is more about the whole content as a whole, and it's consumed in different ways.
I don't know if I agree entirely, but it's one of those debates, because now you've got all forms of media coming under one technology. In the next 2 years, we're all going to be under one technology, which is digital. Everything is available online. So I don't know if we can separate each other anymore, but it's definitely something we can continue to discuss. But before we take our first break, or rather actually, let's take our first break, and then we'll come back now and get into a little bit more detail around some of the points we've each touched on in our episode tonight of My Future. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to My Future. I'm Ruveneko. Tonight in studio with Tapiwa Msoni, the Day Walker, Bongai Zamchia, Tilda Moyo, Dennis Dube, and Spencer Banda. And we are discussing, if you haven't guessed it already, and if you've just tuned in, we're discussing media in Zimbabwe, particularly broadcast and radio. Now, we were discussing, I guess, reminiscing in the last segment, talking about what we remember about radio, what radio was then for each of us as individuals, and what it is becoming now. And just before the break, we were hearing about, how radio, and much like many other media platforms, there's a lot of merging of the different forms of platforms, and now we're not sure if radio is going to survive the way that it has over the last soon radio's been around since about 1895, and we are now in an age where digital is taking over. So the question I want to ask now and get right into is around our role as media practitioners, right, as well as radio personalities. We're discussing content and how we need to keep up with the times. I'll come to you here, Tilda.
Okay.
The content you discussed a few years ago was taboo to discuss on radio, right? How did you manage to break that barrier? Because Zimbabweans always like to act like they're on a moral high ground, this moral pedestal, and that we shouldn't discuss certain issues, where your program has become one of the most popular programs on Zimbabwean radio. So how did you break through that? And what's the message you're getting from your listeners around what you're now doing?
Okay. Like you said, most of my issues I could discuss, like especially on my shows, kare zvainza zvitaurwe zvinoyera. But tikada kutarisa reality chaiyo. Zviya zvokunzanzi vanhu kana muri married muri mumba mukadzi ataure. But at the end of the day, parikuitika problems atiri kuverenga newspaper na H Metro kupi kuti mukadzi azobatwa nechikomba kana kuti murume azoita girlfriend. And then maybe if we go deeper kutsvaga kuti why are they doing that? That's what I discuss on my shows. Kuti ti avoid kunyanya ma divorce cases. Kuti tikasataura kana tikasadzika pane problem apana zvatinenge taita. Saka when I just started off that show, takona vanhu vakawanda cha appreciate. And a lot of people vari kutofara kuti no, at least there are some things, say muri mumba murume nemukadzi, like mukadzi akwanisa kutseura murume. Ukada kutaura kuti ko baba apa chakatonza wakazviona kupi wazviziva kupi. But if they hear that on radio, munhu anokwanisa ngozidzora kuti oh okay, saka maybe mimi ini ndine problem, this is what I'm doing. Right. Saka maybe I need to correct myself on this. Saka that way ndakangona vanhu vachingosvikamuchira vachi appreciate. And ndikuona zviri kubatsira my families, yes.
So all hope is not completely lost, because like what you're saying, what you do is what radio was before, right? Which is appointment listening. Right? Some people, like, Zamchia was saying earlier, that sometimes people just listen to radio as background noise, but with Tilda's programs and maybe talk shows and other more engaging programs, there's still that appointment listening aspect, which we're not yet sure is going to disappear anytime soon, because people want it and they need it. How about the other types of programs? We all cover, you're strictly entertainment, Dan. Spencer, you're sport, you're also entertainment, comedy, people need that, right? Zam, you now are doing, current affairs and talk. So what do we do with that? Because we have radio stations that cater to all those different aspects, but in order to stay relevant, does that mean we need to go back to what radio used to be?
I think when you look at it, if you see the average radio listener, probably listens to radio 15 minutes a day. Right, so that's your non-appointment listening. It's like Dan was saying, in the car, going to work, etc. So those are crucial minutes. You've got to capture someone's imagination in that time. So what you end up having is, you say, even though it's not direct appointment, it becomes appointment by habit. This is the station I listen to. This is the person I listen to, and they do that continuously. And then when you've captured that person's imagination, is to continue capturing it. People are informed already, but you've got to keep on informed. Like Spencer said, in sport, they need to know that extra detail. You know, one of the things we always talk and joke about is reading. You know, as a presenter, you must read. You have to be more knowledgeable about, exactly. And if you don't make that effort, people are going to find you out very quickly. So if you're going to present a business show, and that's primarily what I do, research your show. You know, who's coming on your show, you know, get an understanding of their profile. And some people are very detailed, and they'll actually say, give us questions in advance, because they want to go through it, and they want to also be knowledgeable about their subject and don't want to be caught out. So you've got to spend time to understand who your listener is, your target market, your audience, and actually read and become knowledgeable. Become a guru. That's why people will listen to you. If you're a guru on entertainment and you've got the latest entertainment news, or you've got a hookup, exactly. If you're the business person, know what it means. Don't just read indices and say the ZSE went up 5%, and you have not an idea.
You don't know what you're saying either. It's just coming out. Okay?
The CAC 40, what's that? The CAC Cajon, you know? Spend some time to understand what that is. Yeah,
that's important, because even with comedy, it's only funny if it's based on what's actually happening, what's actually real. That's, you know, what's actually relevant. So I have to know as well. You know, it's not just pulling out of the air. You know, well, I can do that, but but what it is you do your research. Yeah, you must be topical. It's got to be relevant and something that people can actually relate to and find funny. So. Yeah.
Now, I want to just move from that and just talk about, still on content, but around that fight between, do you please the client, do you please the listener? Because from a commercial radio background, and a lot of us now are in the industry where our media houses they need to make money to stay afloat, regardless of what their contract says, right, or their license says. It is about the advertising. So our content now sometimes is driven by the client, right? Because they want A, B, and C executed. But is that what our listener wants? Who's radio for these days? Is it an advertising platform, or is it for listeners?
Well, I think in many of the situations that you find, yes, indeed, you know, the client will come and tell you, I wanted to go this way and that way. But also the client wants the listenership. You know, that's the key thing.
They want the numbers. They want the people.
Numbers. They want people to be listening to your show. So, I mean, you've got to be able to highlight to them that, look, if we're going to do this, it's not going to work because these people won't like this. So you want the things that the listeners want to hear. They want to hear the latest results. They want to hear, you know, the reactions that are coming through from the coaches and things like that. If the client then comes and says, no, probably push so-and-so better, then, you know, people, what they'll simply do is there's 7, 8 other stations to listen to. They'll switch off and switch on to another one.
Yeah, because some of you as radio stations will play 9 adverts back to back at one given time for at least 12 minutes. It's adverts running. What is it that I am? What value are you giving me? You know, when you think of your listener, who is your listener and what do they want? You know?
I think a lot of clients as well would benefit from an active listenership. So it's not just an issue of playing a song that everyone wants, because everyone's listening to the song in the background, but you want people to be actively involved in whatever conversation is going on. And most clients perhaps don't get that initially. But I think most of us have had conversations where we're like, listen, I understand this is what you want to bring across to the listeners. This is how best to do it. So that not only do we not alienate the listener, but we also put across whatever your objectives are as a client. So I think it's just a matter of that's the whole point of being a radio DJ or presenter, being able to communicate something from one person to the next. Sure. And if you're good at your job, then you'll be able to do it in a way that doesn't take away from the client, and also at the same time, it doesn't take away from the listener.
Sure. Mostly my listeners, iwesa producer presenter we program unofanda kuita zvavanoda kunzwa and then maybe at the end of the show futi unofanda kuziva kuti okay pane zvandaita izvi fine vanzwa pane zvavadzidza here at the same time my clients chavanoda ma numbers like we said so like ukataurira vanhu zvavanoda kunzwa already watowana attention yavo and then which is my numbers ari kudiwa ne client so I think we need this.
We need both the listener and please the listener and the client.
And the client.
There are many, like you said, don't identify themselves as, you know, a DJ, right? We are presenters. We can present whatever language that comes off our tongue easiest. But in Zimbabwe, you'll find shows like Tilda thriving in popularity because people want to identify in their mother tongue. So the Spencer Banders. All right. I'm sure you've heard the jokes and the memes. Your accent. Why do you talk like that when you know that there are Zimbabweans that don't understand that twang? Like, why do you do that? All right. That's it from us on My Future tonight. But don't despair. We did end quite abruptly, but that's only because there'll be part 2 of this episode next week. We have a lot to talk about, and as I said, personally biased because we're discussing radio in Zimbabwe. So this is it from My Future tonight. I'm Ruveneko. Good night for now. Be good. And if you can't be good, be safe.